The obsidian city of Varentia was a place where people polished their pride as carefully as their silver. Towers of black stone rose toward the sky, catching the faint sun like cold mirrors. Every street shimmered with silk robes, gold jewelry, and faces trained to stay calm and perfect. In Varentia, respect was given only to those who shone brighter than the rest. And this was the city where Lady Saren Valimir surprised everyone. From the moment Saren was born, the people of Varentia whispered that she was meant for a grand destiny. She was graceful, sharp-minded, and carried herself with quiet confidence. Her family expected her to marry someone powerful, someone admired, perhaps a prince from the east or a noble commander. But instead, she married Arn. Arn, the plain man. Arn, who wore simple clothes, spoke in a gentle voice, and carried no symbols of wealth or high birth. When Saren and Arn stood together at the small ceremony, the city did not hide its shock. Saren wore a gown of pale silver, glowing softly under the lantern light, while Arn stood quietly beside her in a dark, unadorned coat. He looked like someone who belonged in a market stall, not at the side of a noble lady. Whispers rose like smoke. Why him? She threw away her future. He has no house, no title, not even charm. Perhaps she lost her mind. Or perhaps he tricked her. Saren pretended she did not hear any of it. She kept her chin high, her eyes calm. But deep inside, she felt each whisper settle like a small stone in her chest. She had chosen Arn, not for any advantage, but because he made her feel something rare in Varentia peace. When she spoke, he listened with full attention. When she felt tired, he understood without needing her to explain. His presence was steady, warm, and comforting in a way she had never experienced. But even Saren could not deny that Arn was different. And not only in the simple ways others pointed out. He never spoke of his past. He never mentioned family. He never explained where he learned the strange knowledge he carried, knowledge of old symbols, lost stories, and forgotten lineages. Sometimes, shadows moved strangely near him, bending in ways that did not follow the lantern light. Saren once caught him standing in complete stillness near the window, as if listening to something beyond sound. And whenever he touched her hand, a faint warmth spread through her skin, almost like a soft pulse. Still, he always said the same thing when she asked, "I am no one worth knowing." Saren never believed that. After the wedding, they moved into a modest house on the quiet edge of Varentia. It was far from her family's grand halls. The house was simple but clean, with dark wooden beams and a small balcony that overlooked the city walls. It had no servants, no luxuries, and Saren did not mind. She told herself that she had chosen a new life, one where she would build her own happiness. But the city did not let her forget. Every time she walked through the streets, she heard whispers. Sometimes they were behind her. Sometimes, people did not even bother to lower their voices. Look. The noble who married a nobody. She must be regretting it now. How embarrassing. Children pointed at her, confused by the contrast between her elegance and Arn's plainness. Even merchants who once welcomed her now looked at her with thin smiles, unsure how to treat someone who had traded status for something they could not understand. At first, Saren brushed off the comments. She told herself that people would eventually forget. She continued her daily routine, fetching herbs from the market, preparing tea in the afternoons, and sitting with Arn on their small balcony as the city lights flickered. But the whispers did not fade. Day after day, they grew sharper, louder. And Saren, no matter how strong she tried to be, could feel herself bending under them. One evening, after a particularly difficult walk through the crowded square, Saren returned home feeling drained. She found Arn seated at their table, reading an old, worn book with pages that looked older than the city itself. He looked up the moment she entered. "You're troubled," he said quietly. Saren tried to smile, but the expression came out thin and tired. "It's nothing," she lied. Arn studied her for a long moment. His eyes were warm, steady, and too perceptive. "Saren," he said softly. Please tell me. The gentle concern in his voice cracked something inside her. The words she had tried so hard to hide began to spill out. I can't keep pretending it doesn't hurt, she whispered. They laugh at me, Aaron. They sneer. They treat me like I threw my life away. And I try to ignore it. I do. But I am tired. So tired. Arn's expression did not change. But something in the air around him shifted so subtly she might have imagined it. The candle flame beside him flickered, even though the window was closed. He stood and walked toward her, stopping just a step away. He did not touch her, but his presence felt like a quiet shield. I am sorry, he said. His voice held a weight she had never heard from him before, a mix of sorrow and something deeper, something ancient. You should not suffer because of me. I am not suffering because of you, Saren said, frustration swelling. I chose you. I believe in you. But the world thinks it has the right to judge. Arn lowered his gaze. I should have remained alone. Do not say that, she replied sharply. He looked at her, and she felt the depth of something hidden behind his eyes, like a storm trapped behind a closed door, something he had never allowed her to see. I mean it, he said. If I were what they think I am, it would not matter. But I am. He stopped himself, jaw tightening. I am not who they believe. And I fear what will happen when the truth finds us. Saren felt a chill. What truth? Arn stepped back, his expression closing again like a gate shutting. It is not time. Arn, please, he said, so quietly it sounded almost like a plea. Saren wanted to argue. She wanted to demand answers. But she saw the fear behind his eyes. A fear, not for himself, but for her. And she knew pressing him now would only push him further into silence. So she nodded. Arn gave her a small, grateful smile, though it did not reach his eyes. Rest, he murmured. I will finish here. Saren went to their room, exhausted. She lay down on the soft mattress, her thoughts tangled with worry, curiosity, and the faint sting of humiliation that the city never let her forget. She stared at the ceiling until her eyelids grew heavy. Slowly, she drifted into sleep. Arn waited until the sound of her breathing settled into a calm rhythm. Then he stood, walked quietly to the balcony, and stepped into the cool night air. The sky was clear at first, sprinkled with pale stars. But as Arn looked up, the darkness gathered and folded in upon itself. An eclipse silent and unnatural blossomed above him, though no bells rang and no people stirred to witness it. The shadows around him moved, bending toward him like loyal servants. Arn closed his eyes and spoke in a low voice that carried a resonance unlike anything Saren had ever heard from him. Just a little longer, he whispered to the hidden sky. Do not reveal me yet. The darkness pulsed in answer, and somewhere in the quiet city below, a faint tremor stirred, almost too soft to notice, but enough to suggest that something ancient had just awakened. Morning light in Varentia was always pale, as if the sun never fully trusted the city. It slipped softly across rooftops, touched the black stone towers, and settled with hesitation on the small house where Saren and Arn lived. Saren awoke, feeling the quiet heaviness of the night before. Her dreamless sleep had brought no answers. She found the other side of the bed empty, as usual. Arn often rose before dawn, disappearing into the early shadows of the house. When she stepped into the main room, she found him standing near the window, looking out at the distant hills. Good morning, Saren said gently. Arn nodded, but did not turn fully. Good morning. His voice was calm, but Saren could sense something distant beneath the calmness, like someone listening to a sound she could not hear. You were awake very late, she said carefully. For a little while, he replied. I needed to think. Saren waited, hoping he might share more, but Arn remained quiet. The soft morning light framed him, making his simple form appear almost fragile. If anyone from the city saw him now, they would say he looked humble, unremarkable, even forgettable. But Saren no longer believed that. Something about him was changing. She could feel it the way one feels. A shift in the air before a storm. Still, she said nothing. She knew he would speak when he was ready. Growing rumors. As days passed, strange whispers spread through Varentia. People spoke of unusual shapes near the city walls, shapes moving with quiet purpose. Farmers returning from the outskirts claimed they saw tall figures standing in the distance, watching the city with glowing eyes. Merchants passing through the gates reported seeing symbols drawn on the outer stones, old markings that no one could identify. The city guards posted extra watchmen, though no one admitted they felt uneasy. Saren heard the rumors wherever she went. They say old forces have returned. They say the curse of the past kings has awakened. They say the shadows are searching for someone. Saren listened silently, a chill sliding down her spine. Every night, she noticed more strange behavior from Aaron. Nothing frightening, but certainly unusual. He often stood on the balcony, long after she had gone to bed. She sometimes found him tracing ancient-looking symbols in the air, his fingers glowing faintly before the light disappeared. Aaron always looked tired afterward, as if carrying a weight she could not see. Saren wanted to ask questions, but each time she tried, he looked at her with such quiet worry that her words fell away. Marks on the doorstep. One morning, Saren stepped outside to sweep the small stone path beside their home. As she moved the broom, something caught her eye near the doorstep. A symbol. It had been drawn with a substance like dark ink, shaped into a spiral with small, pointed designs branching outward. It resembled the symbols she had seen Aaron draw in the air. But this one was sharper, older, and carried a strange pull, like a quiet hum beneath her feet. Her heart tightened. "Aaron?" she called. He appeared almost instantly, as if he had been nearby. When he saw the mark, his expression changed. Not with fear, Aaron rarely looked afraid, but with recognition. He knelt and touched the edge of the symbol with a careful finger. The moment he did, the lines flickered faintly before fading into nothing. "What was that?" Saren whispered. "An old sign," Aaron replied, voice soft but steady. "One that should not be here." "Does it mean danger?" Aaron hesitated. "It means something is searching." "Searching for you?" His silence was answer enough. Saren felt her breath hitch. "Aaron, please tell me who is looking for you. I cannot stay calm if I don't understand." Two. Aaron stood slowly, his eyes meeting hers. "I promise you," he said gently. "I will explain everything soon, but the time is not right yet." Saren's worry folded into frustration. "You keep saying that. How much longer must I wait?" "A little longer," he whispered. She wanted to argue, but the exhaustion in his voice stopped her. There was something heavy inside him. Something old and unspoken. And though she hated not knowing, she could not bring herself to push him too hard. For now, she let it go. The ruined chapel. Everything changed 3 nights later. Saren woke in the deep hours of the night and found the bed empty again. But this time, a strange pull urged her to rise and follow the faint glow she saw under the door. She stepped into the main room and saw the front door slightly open, a cold breeze drifting inside. Aaron had left. Saren wrapped a cloak around her shoulders and stepped into the quiet night. The streets were empty, the lanterns low. A thin mist clung to the stones, giving the city an unearthly glow. She followed the direction she felt Aaron had gone, not through logic, but through instinct. Her steps led her toward the old quarter of Varentia, where crumbling buildings rested like tired giants. Among them stood the ancient Chapel of Dusk, long abandoned and avoided because people believed old spirits lingered there. The doors of the chapel were slightly open. Saren's heart beat faster. She pushed the door gently and stepped inside. Moonlight filtered through the broken roof, forming pale beams across the floor. Dust floated in the air, like silver powder. But Saren saw Arin immediately standing near the altar, facing a figure made of shimmering pale light. The figure looked almost human, but not fully. Its form was tall, graceful, and wrapped in a soft glow that shifted like drifting fog. And it was bowing. Bowing to Arin. Saren froze. The glowing figure spoke first, its voice soft and echoing. "My king." Saren's breath slipped out of her. Arin did not respond right away. His shoulders were tense, his face shadowed in sadness. "You should not call me that," he said quietly. "Not here." "It is your true name," the figure replied. "The shadows of your crown are rising again. You cannot hide much longer." Saren felt her mind spinning. "King? Crown?" Arin ran a hand through his hair, his voice filled with quiet pain. "I wanted more time." "You have none," the figure said. "The curse is stirring. It knows you are awakening." Saren pressed a hand to her mouth to keep from gasping. Curse. Awakening. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with a deep, overwhelming realization. Arin had never been plain. Arin had never been ordinary. Arin had been hiding something powerful, something ancient. She stepped forward, unable to stay silent any longer. "Arin?" The glowing figure lifted its head, surprised. Arin turned sharply, worry flooding his eyes. "Saren, you shouldn't be here." She ignored the warning in his voice and walked closer. "Tell me the truth," she said softly. "Please." Arin looked at her for a long moment. The struggle inside him was clear. Finally, he exhaled, slowly. "I am the last surviving heir of the Nightborn Kings," he began. "A dynasty that ruled long ago, before Varentia rose. My family was known for a power that connected us to the old world. But a curse fell upon the line, one that destroyed our kingdom and erased our names from history." Saren listened, her mind piecing together details she had never understood before. "The curse," Arin continued, "stripped us of our power and forced us to live hidden lives. If we tried to claim what we once were, the curse would grow stronger. So I lived, quietly. I avoided everything that might awaken it." Saren felt a deep ache in her chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I never wanted you to be dragged into this," Arin said, voice trembling. "When we married, I hoped, foolishly, that I could stay unknown forever. But the moment you chose me, something inside the curse shifted. It felt your vow, and it began to wake. Trom." Saren pressed a hand over her heart. "Arin." The glowing figure whom Saren now understood was some kind of guardian spoke gently. "She must know everything. The old symbols on your door were placed by those who once served your family. They are coming to warn you. Others may not be so kind." Arin closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with quiet resignation. "I am sorry, Saren," he said. "I lied to you. I should have told you sooner." Saren stepped forward and took his hand. Her voice was soft, steady, and full of quiet strength. "Next time," she said, "tell me before the shadows do." Arin looked at her with deep relief mixed with fear. Because now that the truth had been spoken aloud, there was no turning back, and the shadows outside the chapel seemed to tremble in agreement. The morning after the ruined chapel felt strangely calm, as if the city were holding its breath. But Saren could feel the shift beneath the stillness. Arin walked beside her on their way back home. But he seemed almost transparent, quiet, thinking, carrying invisible weight. The truth she had learned the night before rested between them like a fragile mirror. He was no plain man, no humble stranger. He was the hidden heir of a lost kingdom, carrying a curse that had followed him since birth. And Saren. She had stepped into that truth, without turning away. Still, the air felt unsteady. Arin's hand brushed hers gently as they walked. She intertwined her fingers with his, and although he squeezed her hand softly, His mind seemed far away, listening to things she could not hear. When they reached their home, the sunlight caught Aron's face. For a moment, Saren thought she saw a faint shimmer around him, a soft outline, like a crown made of light and shadow, flickering above his head before vanishing. A reminder of what he truly was. A reminder of what she was now tangled in. The city's changing eyes. By midday, the city began to sense something unusual. People who once ignored Saren now stared openly. Some looked confused, some suspicious, and some simply afraid without understanding why. Rumors were spreading faster than the truth could hide. Saren heard merchants whisper, "I saw light near the old chapel last night." Old symbols were found near the gates again. Something ancient is waking. A group of women who once smiled politely at Saren now watched her from across the market, whispering behind their hands. She is involved. She knows something. She is not as innocent as she looks. The words were soft, but Saren felt each one like a cold touch against her skin. Arn noticed her discomfort and stepped closer. Although he tried to look calm, she could see the tension forming in his eyes. "They are guessing," he said quietly, "but they do not know the truth." "Not yet," Saren whispered. She wondered what would happen when they did know. Would the city fear Aron? Would they fear her because she stood beside him? Would they turn against them both? She shook the thought away, but it lingered like smoke. Cracks in the air. Over the next few days, Aron's unusual abilities began to appear more often. Small things at first. When he touched an old book, its faded ink brightened. When he stepped near the balcony plants, they stood taller and greener. When he walked through a room, shadows stretched slightly, as if greeting him. But there were difficult moments too. Once, when Saren placed her hand gently on his shoulder, Aron flinched. Not out of fear, but because something inside him surged like a sudden spark of power. A thin glow slipped down his arm before fading. "It is getting harder to control," he admitted one night. "The curse reacts to every emotion, every memory. And now that I have told you the truth, it grows stronger." Saren stood beside him on the balcony, the night breeze brushing her hair. "Does it hurt you?" Arn looked out at the stars. "Not in a physical way, but it pulls at me. It wants me to be something I am trying not to be." "What does it want you to be?" "A king again." Saren's breath caught. "Is that bad?" Arn gave a sad, soft smile. "A king under a curse is not a king, Saren. He is a prisoner wearing his own crown." End quote. A king under a curse, we revered whether pretearing, Exodus 5. The words settled heavily between them. Saren gently placed her hand on his. "You are not alone in this anymore." Arn looked at her, and for the first time in days, his eyes softened with warmth instead of worry. But before he could speak, a sudden tremor passed through the floor beneath their feet. Gentle, but unmistakable. Saren gripped the balcony rail. "What was that?" Arn frowned, his eyes narrowing as if sensing something distant. "They are getting closer." "Who?" "Those connected to the curse. Those who want me to rise or fall." Saren felt her stomach tighten. "And what do they want from me?" Arn reached for her hand. "Your presence awakened something the curse did not expect. A vow made with true feeling always carries power, and the curse reacts to anything powerful." Saren swallowed. "Meaning, I changed it somehow?" "The curse is old," Aron said softly. "But you are the first light it has seen in a long time. A city turns." By the end of the week, the whispers in Varentia had grown heavier. People watched Saren more boldly now. A few even stepped away as she passed, as if a shadow clung to her that they could not see. The noble families, once proud acquaintances of the Valamir house, treated her with stiff politeness or avoided her entirely. Some believed she was hiding something. Others believed she had married Aron for secret power. Saren heard one nobleman mutter to another. She wants influence. She pretends to be simple, but she is plotting. She is using him. Using him. The words stung more than Saren expected. Using Aaron was the last thing she had ever intended. That evening, she paced the small home, her thoughts clouded. She felt tension where peace had once been, confusion where certainty had lived. Arn watched her from the corner of the room, his expression gentle but tired. You should ignore their words, he said quietly. I try, Saren replied. But they speak as if I chose this because of ambition. As if I planned everything. Arn stepped closer. Their opinions do not define your heart. But they define how the city sees us. Arn hesitated. The city has always chosen appearances over truth. Saren looked at him sharply. Is that what you think I did? When I chose you? A flicker of pain crossed Arn's face. Saren. No. You saw me. When no one else did. Then why does it feel like everything is falling apart now? Arn looked away. Because my truth is heavy, and I carried it alone for too long. Now, you carry a part of it too. There was silence. Saren stepped closer, her voice soft but trembling. I just want you to trust me fully. I do, Arn whispered. More than anyone. Then tell me everything, she said. No more half-truths. No more waiting. Arn swallowed. For a long moment, he seemed to fight with himself. Then, slowly, he began. The breaking crown. When the curse fell on my family, Arn said, it was not only meant to take our power, it was meant to change the world's memory. People forgot the Nightborn kings. Their stories turned into half-remembered legends. Our names vanished from scrolls. Saren listened. Breath held. And when I grew older, Aaron continued, the curse made something else clear. If I ever tried to reclaim what I once was, if the crown ever touched me again, it would take something from me in return. What would it take? Saren asked softly. Arn looked at her with a pain that cut deeper than words. It would take the part of me that can love. Saren felt her breath stop. Arn looked away toward the window. That is why I stayed plain. Why I stayed hidden. Why I feared falling in love. Because the moment I care too much, the curse sees it as a weakness, and it tries to tear it away. 1-9. Saren stepped forward, her voice shaking. Is that why your power feels unstable? Yes, Arn whispered. Because I care more than I should. Because I chose a life the curse never meant for me. Saren touched his hand. Caring is not a weakness. For you, Arn said softly, it is strength. For me, it is the curse's favorite chain. Before Saren could respond, a sound echoed outside, a soft, heavy thrum. Like distant footsteps. Both turned toward the door. A soft glow slipped in through the cracks of the windows. Saren felt her heartbeat quicken. Arn, what is that? Arn's face grew pale. They have found us. Who? Saren whispered, fear settling in her chest. Arn's voice was quiet, steady, filled with dread and acceptance. Those loyal to the old curse. Those who want to crown me, or destroy what I love to keep the curse alive. Saren grabbed his arm. We can face this together. Arn looked at her with deep, heartfelt sorrow. No, he whispered. This is what I feared most. The glow outside grew brighter. Arn turned to Saren and spoke in a voice that trembled despite his strength. Saren, whatever happens next, remember that my love for you was real, even if the curse tries to take it from me. Saren shook her head fiercely, tears forming. I won't let anything take you from me. But the light outside burst brighter, and something powerful waited on the doorstep. The glow outside the house grew brighter. Soft, yet powerful. like a rising moon shining through a thin veil. Saren stood close to Arryn. Her fingers curled tightly around his sleeve. Her heart beat fast. But not because she feared him, she feared losing him. Arryn took a slow breath and whispered, "Stay behind me." "No," Saren said immediately. "We face this together." Arryn looked at her with a fragile expression, half gratitude, half despair. "I do not want the curse to touch you." "It already has," Saren said gently, "because it follows you, and I choose you." Arryn closed his eyes for a moment, as if her words both strengthened him and broke him at the same time. Then the door opened on its own. A soft breeze slipped inside, carrying a faint shimmer of silver dust. It floated through the room like drifting stars. Saren felt her skin tingle, as if something old and watchful had entered their home. A tall figure stepped through the doorway, but the figure was not threatening. It wore a robe made of pale light, its face calm, serene, almost peaceful. It carried the air of someone who belonged to ancient memories rather than the present world. Arryn stiffened. "Warden," he murmured. Saren recognized the voice. It was the same guardian spirit she had seen in the ruined chapel, though this form looked more complete, more awake. The warden bowed its head slightly. "My king," it said softly, "forgive my sudden arrival. The time has come." Arryn tensed. "I am not ready. No one ever is," the warden replied with gentle sadness. "But the curse is rising. The shadows gather beyond the city walls. Varentia will soon feel what you have tried so hard to hide." Saren stepped forward. "Can the curse be broken?" The warden turned its glowing face toward her. "There is a way, Lady Saren, but it requires a choice that shapes more than destiny. It shapes the heart." Arryn closed his eyes, knowing exactly what the warden meant. Saren swallowed. "Tell me." Arryn's voice shook. "Saren, please." "No," Saren said quietly, lifting her chin. "I want the truth." The warden's glow softened, as if respecting her bravery. "The curse binds the king's heart to his crown. If he accepts the crown fully, the curse will try to take what makes him human: his love, his gentleness, his memories of the life he chose." Saren felt her breath tremble. "And if he rejects the crown," the warden continued, "the curse will weaken, but so will the king. His power may fade, his lineage may end, and the world may lose the balance he is meant to restore." Saren felt the weight settle around her like a quiet storm. The warden's voice softened. "But there is a third choice, one that ancient texts once whispered about." Arryn looked up sharply. "That path was a myth." "No," the warden said. "It was simply forgotten." Saren stepped closer. "What is the third choice?" The warden studied her with gentle light. "A vow stronger than the curse. A vow made not out of fear, nor out of duty, but out of pure devotion. If a queen freely binds her heart to the king, and he binds his heart to hers in return, the curse can be challenged. Together, you may reshape what was meant to be." Arryn's breath caught. "But that would put Saren in danger. Every path places her in danger," the warden replied softly, "except the one where she walks away." Saren shook her head before Arryn could speak. "I am not walking away." Arryn closed his eyes, pain tightening his expression. "Saren, if we choose this, the curse will test us. It will try to break us. It may try to twist the vow. Then we do not let it," she said simply. "Saren," she touched his hand gently. "Arryn, I married you when I believed you were a plain man. But even now, knowing you are a hidden king, I want you. Not your crown, not your power, you." Arryn opened his eyes, and she saw pure emotion there: fear, love, longing. The warden stepped back. "If you wish to make the vow, you must do it where the curse is strongest." Arryn nodded reluctantly. The Valley of Lost Crowns. Saren frowned. Where is that? Arn looked toward the distant hills. The place where my family's last throne dissolved. Where the curse settled like a sleeping storm. Saren tightened her fingers around his hand. Then let's go. Arn hesitated only a moment before whispering, Very well. The Valley of Lost Crowns. They traveled beyond Varentia as dawn touched the sky, painting it with soft pink light. The city behind them looked quiet, unaware of the ancient forces stirring under its foundations. Arn walked beside Saren, the warden drifting silently behind them like a gentle moon. As they reached the valley, a stillness settled around them deep, almost sacred. The land was soft and silver-gray, as if covered in old memories. Broken stone arches rose from the ground like forgotten ribs of a long-lost palace. Saren stepped carefully, feeling the weight of history around her. Arn's voice was low. This is where the curse began. Saren reached for his hand. Then it ends here too. Arn looked at her, his eyes full of a fragile hope he no longer tried to hide. The warden motioned toward a small circle of pale stones. Stand here. Together. Arn and Saren stepped into the circle. A gentle breeze rose, carrying a soft shimmer of light. Saren felt warmth settle over her shoulders, like invisible hands offering comfort. Arn took a slow breath. Saren. Before we begin, I must tell you something. Saren looked at him, her heart steady. What is it? Arn's eyes glistened. I am afraid. He spoke the words softly, almost like a confession. I am afraid the curse will take something from me, he continued. I am afraid it will take what I feel for you. I am afraid I will lose myself. And I am afraid I will lose you. Saren stepped closer until their foreheads touched. Then hold on to me, she whispered. Because I am not afraid of you, or the curse, or your crown. I am only afraid of a life where I do not stand beside you. Arn shut his eyes, breathing in her strength. The warden lifted its hands. Begin, it said softly. The vow that breaks the old. Light gathered around them, soft, gentle, warm like early morning sun. It encircled their hands, their hearts, their joined breath. Arn's voice trembled as he spoke first. I vow, he whispered, to choose you above any crown. To stand beside you even when shadows rise. To hold the part of me the curse cannot touch. Saren felt warmth bloom in her chest. She spoke next, her voice steady and full of quiet power. I vow to walk with you, not behind you or before you. I vow to carry your truth as my own. And I vow to love you even when the world tries to pull us apart. The light around them flared gently. Arn squeezed her hands tighter. Saren lifted her chin. Their vows were simple, but they were honest. And perhaps honesty was the magic the curse had never expected. The air shimmered. A soft glow wrapped around Arn's form, lifting him slightly off the ground. Shadows swirled around him, not harshly, but with curiosity, almost like old memories waking gently. Saren watched with wide eyes. She saw Arn's true form, not plain, not ordinary. He shone with a quiet majesty, a soft crown of light resting above his head, bound not by force, but by heart. But his eyes remained the same. Warm, gentle, human. The curse, quiet for so long, finally eased. Not gone, but softened, reshaped by their vow. The warden bowed deeply. It is done. Arn lowered gently back to the ground. Saren stepped toward him. He took her hands and whispered, I still feel everything. I still feel you. Saren smiled through tears. Good. Homecoming. When they returned to Varentia, the city sensed the change instantly. People stared not with mockery but with awe. The air around Arn seemed lighter, clearer, and Saren, once mocked, walked beside him with calm confidence, her presence glowing with quiet strength. Some bowed, some whispered, some simply watched in silence. Arn leaned close. I do not want a throne. You do not need one, Saren replied. You already have something stronger. What is that? A heart that chose the right path. Arn smiled softly. Yet as they walked through the city gates, a faint shadow slipped across a distant rooftop, thin, silent, almost unseen. Saren did not notice it. Arn did. He looked toward it, his expression thoughtful but not afraid. The curse is gone, he murmured. But not everything that followed it. Saren touched his arm. Then we will face what comes next. Together. Arn looked at her with quiet devotion. Together. The shadow faded into the light, and the story of the plain man and the mocked bride did not end. It only transformed.